Makeup. I think I've had enough makeup. Thank you. Here we are, episode 7, series 5. It's Whisky Unscripted, and I have got in my company Mr. Gordon Dundas. How are you, Gordon?
Hello. How are you, sir?
Well, it's always you never know how to start these things, Gordon. But we're at episode 53 or something now. So
unbelievable. And I think we've done some really. The last couple of episodes I've really enjoyed. I loved Becky last week and the last episode, and the one before that, obviously, William H. Macy and many others. Fabulous. But we've both been out and about and doing things as well.
Yes, that's right. So it's one of these podcasts where it's not as regular or as weekly as some others, because we do work in the industry. We are out and about with the
they are working.
We are out and about, yes. We're pretending to work. Gordon, can I ask, what are you drinking today? Let's get right into the podcast with some lovely liquids.
I tell you what I picked up today, because it links a little bit to what we're going to discuss a little bit later. And I've got a Tamdhu cigar malt, and I'm going to drink that because that was a fabulous release from Tamdhu. Lots of first fill European oak and beautiful whiskey, 53.8%. Don't have to have a cigar. Beautiful on its own, but works really well with a cigar. And anybody who wants to know more about it, have a look at the video we did back in sort of September last year for the launch of the first cigar malt. But the reason I'm drinking this is in line with what we're going to talk about later and summer whiskies, because this may be perceived as not a summer whiskey. But for me, whiskey's anytime, and we'll talk about that later on. So first fill European oak, beautifully rich, and those thick, rich, dark fruits that you would expect. Fabulous.
It really was, and a great video you filmed up there in Tamdhu, which is a wonderful place, that area to spend summer. And that was one of the quickest selling whiskies of all time, that Tamdhu cigar malt.
Absolutely really unbelievable.
When you see it, you don't.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
So that was wonderful. Gordon,
what are you drinking?
Well, we've got our friends from the whiskey shop in London. We used to work for the Whisky Exchange. Vinnie, a mutual friend of ours, and Vinnie was passing through the distillery, and when exchanged whiskies in the past, and he brought a couple up for a sample. And I said, that will be exactly what we'll do for Whisky Unscripted, Vinnie, and we might get you on the show at some point. So he's given me a lovely little Kalila 15.
Kalila. Now, there is a beautiful whiskey.
That is a lovely dram.
I have to say, I don't know which I prefer more, Lagavulin or Kalila. I mean, Lagavulin 16 is a legendary whiskey, but Kalila, beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. Most of it obviously produced to go into Johnny Walker. So it is a major factor and part of Johnny Walker. And if you go to the Johnny Walker experience, you'll learn that. But still a fabulous distillery and produces small amounts, if we're honest, of very good single malt.
So lovely fruitiness is there, Gordon, with the trademark Isla Peat.
Absolutely.
We'll maybe be speaking to somebody later on about that. So news. We chat in the whiskey. We're now talking this is late June 2022. Gordon, always ask you, anything caught your eye in the whiskey news while we're having a dram?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always something in the whiskey news, and one of the things that caught my eye this week is, and a few people have said that, and I think it's something that we as industry people want to be aware of, but I don't know how much it affects our sort of thinking. But there seems to be a softening in the secondary market, apparently. So all those websites that sell whiskey, I think prices seem to have come down a little bit, which is probably a little bit of an indication of what's going on with everything at the moment. But it's just something, that I know a lot of people, sell bottles, buy bottles, whatever. And it's just something to be aware of in terms of, maybe it's just a little softer right there. But I mean, certainly from our perspective, in terms of selling whiskey, we're selling lots of whiskey, and we could do with selling a little. We could do with having a little bit more, I guess.
Yeah. So this is the secondary market. So people say for a while it was almost more valuable than gold. If you got whiskey and you kept it, you could sell it on what you'd make from it. That couldn't sustain itself, and it doesn't sound like it maybe has. Is that right?
Yeah, and no, I think it's like everything. I think it's gold's maybe not the best, but if watches, you got to buy the right watch if you want to make, you got to buy the right car. You're not going to make money on a Ford Fiesta. You might on a very old Ford Capri, if you know what I mean. So whiskey's the same, and we know that brands like Macallan are completely and utterly in another stratosphere in terms of, how they work in a secondary market. But I mean, even if you look at a brand like Glengoyne does okay in the secondary market. But I think what is interesting with Glengoyne is a lot of people buy Glengoyne and they drink it. They're drinking it because it's fabulous quality whiskey, and I think that's a prime example of, you buy a Glengoyne 25. It's about the best 25-year-old you can buy. I'm a little bit biased, of course, but it's fabulous, and people buy it and drink it.
Two things come out of that one, Gordon. I did my storytelling tour at Glengoyne.
Was that sold out there?
It was a sellout tour. Thank you for mentioning that. But there's a chap from Texas at the end. That's exactly what he was asking. Is there anything here I could buy to collect? 25 or 30. What? Tell me what. I'll buy 2 of them. And it's very.
But you're not going to make, the key thing with Glengoyne is, yes, probably in 5 to 10 years, you might make some money. You're not going to make immediate money immediately, because we're not that, we're a brand producing great whiskey. People drink it. We know that's the case.
It's not a single cask. It's not maybe being produced for a certain event with something special on the label. No. But anyway, speaking of labels, 2 things. Oh, sorry, the second thing that came out of that as well, Gordon, was... I've forgotten. Let's move on. Okay, this is Whiskey Unscripted.
Totally and utterly unscripted.
That's right. This is a Kalila 15, so that's all I'm... we talked about this chap last time on the show. One of my favourite authors and one of the most colourful characters in the world of Scotch whisky. The only 3rd generation master blender has been given an OBE on Tuesday at Holyrood Palace, which is a wonderful recognition of not just him, but of the whisky industry.
That'd be Mr. Patterson.
Richard Patterson.
The nose.
Yes.
What a guy. What a absolutely fully deserved. The amount that guy's done for this industry is fabulous. And I know he's pretty much semi-retired, I think. But fully deserved. Yeah. And if you've ever seen Richard do a whiskey tasting, you'll never forget it.
That's what and also I was just about to jump in there about labels. You mentioned that earlier on, and that's maybe what I was forgetting. But it's a small thing in the news. It might have passed a few people by, but it's a massive thing for the industry, and I think it's worth saying it. Is the Scottish Whisky authorities, SWE, secured the Scotch whisky trademark in America, which means I would have thought there was one, but there's not. There'll now be this is a Scotch whisky little logo on a bottle of Scotch whisky sold in America, which tells the Americans this is from Scotland. And it's just another layer of...
Well, that's a good thing, because there are still people out there who think you can get Scotch from other countries.
Yes.
Because Scotch is such a generic term, particularly in America. Give me a Scotch, and it covers everything from, to most people, they know it's from Scotland, but to a lot of people, Scotch means whiskey.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean a single malt. It doesn't mean a blend. It doesn't mean, it's just Scotch. And so that's great, because it means it's coming from Scotland, and it improves that sort of provenance and all the things that the Scotch whisky industry relies upon. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think that was very good. And the thing I did forget to mention, it's one of these, just you mentioned about monitoring the secondary market. I just think for listeners, does the industry and people like yourself, do they monitor the secondary market in whiskies? Obviously, we're monitoring the first primary market, that's us. Do you keep an eye on what's happening?
No. I mean, I think the only reason I have at the moment is I'm tasked with, we do look at it from a Rosebank perspective, because we're actually looking to source some Rosebanks on the secondary market. But also, obviously we've got a highly prized and limited asset, and which we know would be very silly to say people aren't collecting. We know people are collecting it, and so therefore it's nice to see how it is doing in the secondary market, and we're very happy how Rosebank is going at the moment. So of course we do. Of course it's something that every person in the industry, we all want people to drink whiskey and enjoy it, but we know that that isn't always the case, and we know that people are doing it to make money. I mean, we look at Bowmore on Isla, for example, at the Quaich, we know that there's people flipping bottles immediately, and it's a frustration, but it's a fact of life. And certainly, it's certainly something the industry is aware of and does look at. And I think anybody who says they don't would be probably not a little economical with the truth.
Okay. Well, we'll hopefully, with the powers that I have vested in my laptop, speak to Malcolm Rennie of Rosebank shortly, very shortly.
Fantastic.
We're just assembling a link from Rosebank as we speak, so I'll speak to him very shortly. But before we do, Gordon, another piece of news, and you said that expression, fact of life. This is a fact of life in the whiskey world. The silent season is upon us.
Yes.
And I just wondered, it's happening all over Scotland. What did Tam do? But maybe just gives a chat about how the silent season isn't so silent and what it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's your maintenance window, generally twice a year. And look, you've got to remember, most whiskey distilleries, despite the fact of raw material costs are very high, power costs are very high, inflation, all the things that make production at the moment probably the most expensive it's ever been to make whiskey. These plants are working, most of them are working pretty much 24 hours, a day, 7 days a week at the moment. Most whiskey distilleries are producing as quick, and so you don't have any time to do any maintenance. So if something goes wrong, of course, you will have to do it. But to prevent that and make sure things run smoothly, a silent season of 2, possibly even 3 weeks where you're not producing and it's been built into the schedule is really important to do so you may need to change a condenser, you may need to look at pipe work, you may need to do something to the roof. There's a whole range of things that you might need to do. And so to have a silent season is really, really important. And obviously gives the production guys a bit of a break as well, because they're working shift work. And so, the industry, every distillery does it because you have to maintain these plants. You've got to maintain this system so that it can continually produce that beautiful spirit.
And historically, it was when the water was at a low level, was one of the reasons we hear that it was done in the middle of summer, and also between barley harvests as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's an obvious time where for most distilleries it makes sense to do it. Tamdu, little bit different.
Yes.
Because of the way that Tamdu is supplied by power. In the winter, Tamdu runs on diesel, and in the summer it runs on gas. But that at the moment, because of the way things are with everything, is a little bit different. So Tamdu's silent seasons tend to be more April and October.
Slightly different.
So slightly different,
but it's a massively important part. I know at Glengoyne, because I was up there yesterday, and we've talked about it already today, but just because I know it, the wash still line arm is being removed. And I tell you what, that's not an easy job. Because it's been done before a few years ago, and it was a pig to get back on again. But that's the kind of thing that's getting done, as well as the yard getting dug up and the ponds getting drained. But these are the typical things that happen. And I think if you're going to make for a distillery, if you've been to one, sometimes they're quite similar, but during the silent season, you can really get in there and see the equipment open and speak to one or two of the people fixing it. And it can be an interesting time.
Even simple things like you can see inside the stills, which you don't ever get to see, and you can see how the heating pans work or the steam coils work and all that type of thing, which is really interesting. And sometimes you may get a washback replaced, those types of things. So any mash tun maintenance and all that all happens just to make sure it's going to run smoothly for the next 6 to 9 months and we don't have any problems. And it's like everything, maintain stuff and it should work a lot better and give you more efficiencies and a better spirit.
Before we speak to Malcolm, you just came across another conversation I had with a member of the public last week, was with all the production costs, will whiskey start becoming more expensive along with everything else because of all the costs? And the casks will be more expensive, no doubt, and the electricity more expensive. Will that add onto the price of the bottle?
Put it this way, I don't think whiskey is going to become less expensive over the next year or so. I think that's only fair. Just being honest, I think your whiskies they'll still be good whiskies at good prices, but whiskey in general is going to become more expensive. I think that's only fair and in the context of what's running in the world. But I just want to be straight. I don't see it staying in the same place, and I don't see it going down.
Right,
so
okay.
Therefore it's going to go up. So yes, I think that's probably a good prediction.
We need cheering up then. We do need cheering up, and I think this man was on the first episode of the series 5, Malcolm Rennie, our esteemed manager at Rosebank, and I know people want to know what's happening.
Yes.
Gordon, just set the scene about Rosebank. If you've not, joined us on Whisky Unscripted before, a lowland giant is reawakening.
It is. A lowland giant is reawakening, and it's really pretty much close to being awake. I think that's probably what our friend Malcolm will tell us. But basically, we are now probably, we're very close to running spirit and things like that. Malcolm will give us a full breakdown. But so, lowland distilleries, this is a triple distilled, always has been. So triple distilled lowland with worm tub condensers, and all of this kit has been pretty much put into the distillery. You and I were there when the stills went in March. Fabulous to see this distillery coming back to life, and to have Malcolm on board, who's just can't wait to get going, is fabulous. So I'm really looking forward to hearing the latest, Malcolm.
Here he goes.
Hi there, guys. How you doing?
Yes. Malcolm, thank you for joining us. Now,
time to find out how things are going. Malcolm, how's it all going? I was obviously there for the stills going in, which was highly exciting.
Yes.
Obviously, a lot of other stuff has now been put into the distillery.
Yeah, Gordon, but I have to say we have had some delays. As you well know, some of this kind of happens sometimes with these projects. Some supply chain issues, things like that have kind of held us up slightly. But we're now in a position where I think we're fairly confident on dates of starting and stuff like that. So since we last spoke, one of the big things to go has been the washbacks. So they're now fully installed, and a lot of the pipe work and various ongoing equipment installations going on apace. We're fairly well on with that. And that's all leading us to hopefully commissioning hopefully November, December this year. With looking at live runs, commissioning first 2 weeks in January, and hopefully complete handover by the 3rd week in January. So that's our timeline at the moment.
So just to rewind back there, Malcolm, what you said, how many washbacks are in there, and how did you get them in? What take us through that process.
So there's eight Douglas fir washbacks, and they were built on site by JB Vats. So all the staves were individually brought in and put together, just like big barrels, basically. So, and I played a small part in that by driving some of the hoops. So I think that's on film for posterity. So
that's some job, Gordon, isn't it? I mean,
it is. It's a hard job, yeah. Yep.
So we'll get 3 stills, we'll get 8 washbacks. Anything else? How's the condensers?
Basically, most of the equipment's there. The only big items that are left to bring in, Gordon, are the worm tubs. The worm tub condensers. So they're due to be delivered on July the 12th and installed then.
Excellent.
So that'll be the next landmark kind of thing, because they're fairly big pieces of equipment to be delivered.
Yes, if I'm not right in saying, the crane that brought in the stills was a biggie, a big crane. I believe you've got to get a bigger crane to get the condensers.
This one's huge, yeah, because of the reach it needs and the weight of the worm tubs themselves, yeah, because you can imagine the weight of that big copper coil inside it as well. So yeah, big industrial crane for that one.
And so going through the process, obviously, we've got the mash tun. What's the capacity of that?
The mash tun is 3 ton.
3 tons.
3 tons, yeah.
And then each of the washbacks, what sort of
each of the washbacks will hold 15,000 litres of wash.
Okay.
Yep. And then through to the still. So the wash still is 15,000 litres. So the wash still will basically take 1 washback, 1 mash.
Right.
And then that'll transfer to the intermediate still, which is 10,000 litres. And the spirit still is 8,000 litres.
Wow, fabulous.
So when you're putting these things together, because most people will maybe build a garden hut, even that's beyond me. But when you're building a distillery, I mean, the phone book, there can't be that many people that can do these jobs. Is it easy to source companies, and how do you physically, start go about it?
There's specialised distillery equipment installers, like LHS are playing a big part at Rosebank, along with Forsyth, very well-known name as well. So these are the type of companies that you go to install all your distillery plant for you. Yeah,
it's not their first rodeo.
It's not. No, certainly not.
These are specialists in their equipment, and they know exactly what to do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And they'll have contacts in the wider fields that
are
okay. It's some job trying to, and the building itself, roof on, offices, or how's the actual physical Rosebank looking?
The production area is more or less kind of complete, yes, but they're doing a lot of work in so we're reusing some of the old original buildings, so the malt buildings, kind of offices and VIP rooms and things like that. And the old warehouse is now being turned into that's the visitor side of it. So visitor centre and offices and brand offices, that kind of thing. It's all ongoing at the minute. They've run into a couple of problems with some of the building not being as stable as they originally thought. So there's some more underpinning to be done and stuff like that. To make slappings through for windows and doors and stuff like that. So that's kind of held up slightly at the moment, but I'm assured that things are still on track for them to be finished, all the buildings, in December. Yeah. And
just to say, from a public perspective, I think we'll be looking at somewhere around about Easter time, but that's sort of
for the visitor centre opening.
From a visitor centre. So that's very exciting, and it's all great. So if you're not a member of the Rosebank Club, best to go on and join, and Facebook pages and all that type of thing. And also, I think the three of us are going to be at the Falkirk Whisky Festival.
Yes, I understand. So yeah.
On Saturday, the 13th of August, I believe, in Falkirk. I can't remember where it is exactly.
It's actually in Larbert, I think.
It's in Larbert, yes, which is right next door. But if you're wanting to sort of come and meet Malcolm, find out what's going on, and please do come and see us there.
Yes,
exciting.
Thank you very much, Malcolm, for the update.
No problem. Nice to see you guys, and I'll see you at the Falkirk Whisky Social.
Yes,
absolutely. If not before. Lovely to see you. Take care, fella.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Thanks very much. Bye.
Oh, I'm very excited about that, Gordon. I
can't wait. Yeah. Next year is going to be very exciting for us here at Ian McLeod and Rosebank.
And as we mentioned there, if anyone's in the Falkirk area, August 13th, that's the Whisky Show.
Absolutely.
Come and join us.
Yes, we're going to be at the Whisky Show on August the 13th. Malcolm will be there. Are you going to be there?
I'm going to be there.
I think I'm probably even going to be there too. So that's good. And
Gordon, that's the middle of summer. And that begs one of the great debates of this episode. And it has been controversial because a lot of people do their whiskey festivals in autumn or early in the year, and a lot of the gin festivals are in summer, which prompted the great debate on Whisky Unscripted. Is whiskey a summer drink?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Done. Good. Excellent.
Let's move on. Yeah.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. I mean, look,
a lot of people would disagree with you, Gordon. A lot of people would.
No, of course they would, but that's down to a lot of different reasons. And I think, if you mix whiskey, you can drink it any time of the day. You can drink, it's if you drink whiskey out of a Glencairn glass and you want to enjoy it, you can enjoy it anytime. I mean, I lived in Taiwan for a year, and now that's a hot climate, and even in winter time, and you just drink whiskey slightly differently. You drink it with ice, you drink it with soda in a highball.
That's how you shout when you want another one.
Highball. Or just drink it in different ways. The adaptability of whiskey allows it to be drunk anytime. Now, there are certain whiskies, in my view, that lend themselves a little bit more to summertime. Right, I would. Now, I'm drinking a cigar malt to sort of make a point that although it's summer, although we've not had much of a summer in Scotland so far, this is probably a richer, more considered winter type whiskey. But I could drink this anytime personally, and it's a personal thing. So, but then probably if you're speaking more generically, bourbon casks and that lighter vanilla, more fruity, summery, sort of citrusy style, like Glengoyne 12 or Glen Grant, which we had last week, or a Glenmorangie, or even an Islay with that type of maturation, is much more of that sort of slightly lighter flavor.
Yeah.
It can lend itself more to being more summery.
It just seems, because certainly when you speak to some of our sales people, they're saying that a lot of the whiskey tastings are getting put back till autumn, and the gin, they want the gin tastings. So there's still a little bit of perception out there, Gordon, that let's push whiskey to autumn and not do it in July, August. That said, there's some great festivals, Whiskey Fringe in Edinburgh, and also the one in Falkirk that I'll be attending as well. So, but the issues there that I think there's still a perception.
Absolutely, there is. And look, I think if you look at gin and Pimm's and all these types of drinks that you drink in this, they are beautifully summery. And there's a reason why Wimbledon has an official gin sponsor, but probably not an official whiskey sponsor. Look, I think there is a space for whiskey in the summer, and you just need to think about how you want to drink it. And can I just interrupt you, Gordon, because I decided to take my trusty recorder up to Glengoyne, and I got someone to come on. No, I got someone to say whiskey was not a summer drink, but they didn't like to speak on the recorder. So then I thought I'll go and grab some other people, and this is what they said.
And what you do is basically you talk a lot of nonsense about whiskey.
It's only audio, so don't worry. There's no video, although you all look beautiful. Vivian,
but there's no script.
The big debate for this episode, for episode 50, is is whiskey a summer drink? Do you associate whiskey with summer?
Yes, you can. You can drink whiskey at any time of the year.
Okay, that's not what I got up the yard there.
Okay.
Can I ask you, whiskey in summer, how does it go with you guys?
365.
Oh, I like this. It's a very good tour. So you think whiskey can be a summer drink?
All year round.
Right, okay. Can you drink whiskey on the beach? Would you be sunning yourself and drinking a whiskey?
Yes, with a lot of ice.
Okay,
yeah, definitely, yeah.
Ice. Would you make it long?
What does that mean?
Just soda or ginger ale?
Apple.
Oh, we mean thin it, cut it with something.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Listen, just because you're in the middle of Glengoyne, you can be controversial. Is it a summer drink, whiskey? Do you believe whiskey is for the summer?
Absolutely.
This is wonderful. This is bucking the trend. Are you the same, or do you believe?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you think? Okay.
I'd probably put it with ginger beer.
Right, okay. Yeah, make it ginger. And our friends here, is whiskey a summer drink?
I've never really thought about it, but why not? Why not? I would really try it, yeah.
I think you should. Yeah. Well, Vivian, I thought, most people would have said it's not a summer drink.
Well, maybe because it's such a warm, sunny day here, we're all in summer mood.
They're very happy mood here. What a great tour you for people.
By the way, it has been chucking it down today.
I know, exactly. But most people think gin and the rums are all the summer drinks, and whiskey's the one for the winter, and the same with the whiskey festivals. Yeah. A lot of them are in the winter, but we have proven it wrong today.
Absolutely.
Vivian, carry on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gordon.
Cheers, folks. Bye-bye. Bye.
So there you go, Gordon. 100% totally unanimous. Whiskey is a summer drink, but they were people at a distillery
in the summer. Yeah, they're maybe not maybe you got to remember they're not the widest sort of sphere of people. I think if you spoke to people on a street in the middle of nowhere, you might get a slightly different response. However, I think there's certain whiskey styles that lend themselves to being more of a summer drink, and certainly, those sort of lighter style cask maturation types are more of that.
Yes, and just before we leave this debate, and I've not got them yet, but the highballs you were drinking in Taiwan, were those the big golf ball ice cubes? Because I think that's, and I don't know how I must buy those big chunky bits of ice as opposed to the wee small cubes.
Oh no, if you want to use great ice for whiskey, get the biggest ice in an ideal world, circular, because it melts slower, but even big squares melt a lot slower than much smaller ones, which means your whiskey doesn't change as much. But cooling a whiskey down makes it a really interesting drink in the summer. And as I said, drink whiskey the way you want to. So you can drink a highball. A highball, technically a highball, obviously you can add soda into it as well. And so to have even in a highball glass, I mean, in Japan, for example, you go to like sort of, very sort of basic restaurants, and you get a pint of whiskey highball, which is, a sort of Kakubin highball, which is blended, basically very relatively low priced whiskey in a pint glass with ice and soda. Fabulous drink and very summery. and just a really nice drink to have. So, look, we can learn a lot from how the people who live regularly in hot climates drink whiskey.
That's a good topic for another time. But listen, Gordon, hang on. You just mentioned tall glass, whiskey with some mixers. To me, that's a very simple cocktail, which to me decides now is the time to play Hey Barman, Whose Booze Is It Anyway? With the wonderful Mikey Simm. Hey, Mikey Simm, is he there?
I am here, Gordy. How is it going?
Mikey, I know you've got other jobs, like looking after Smokehead. Is that right?
Try my best to. I mean, spreading the gospel, I think, is the best way to describe it.
Okay. We've just missed a debate. You've just missed a debate about whiskies. In your opinion, is it a summer drink?
I think it's an all-year drink. I think there's times and different ways for it to be drank all year round. I mean, I'm not going to drink it the same way in the summer as I will in the winter time. But again, you know, I'm one of these modern guys who likes to mix my whiskies too. So,
and Mikey, that's exactly why you've got you on. You've been on the podcast before, Mikey Simm, in the virtual bar, but now we are going to take you. I don't know if you know the name of the game. It's called Hey Barman, Whose Booze Is It Anyway? With Mikey Simm. So, Mikey, the rules of the game are simple. You just need to try and pair a whiskey cocktail, because it is summer, with a celebrity, which Gordon has to guess. It's as simple as that. You can both.
I mean, that sounds pretty easy.
If you want. Okay, so what whiskey? Gordon, are you ready? Here we go. Game show. Born on the 2nd of May, 1975 in Leytonstone, London, to parents Ted and Sandra. I would like a stylish whiskey cocktail, and I don't mind if you use grain whiskey, even a spicy one, preferably red in colour. Mikey, what cocktail would you make for that? Gordon, have a few seconds to think. The clues in the question.
Well, I mean, if we're using, I don't know, it's difficult. If we're using grain or something kind of spicy, I mean, you can't much go wrong with almost that kind of style-led old-fashioned. You're also going to have a garnish with a cheeky wee red maraschino cherry.
Old-fashioned.
Oh, I love a maraschino cherry.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, is that it'll work with grain. I mean, because you're dialing up the sweetness, but also a kind of big, spicy Speyside works incredibly well on the old-fashioned front. I mean, as well as the whiskey from across the shore.
Oh yes, and just explain an old-fashioned, Mikey. What you put into that glass?
So, if we're basing it, for example, if Gordon had a bottle of Tamdhu there, we're stirring down Tamdhu, again 100% sherry matured, big spice. Stir that down with bitters. So again, this is where you can kind of take a different approach on what bitters you'd like to use. If you want to go classic style, you can use Angostura. If you want to kind of dial up the orange or the spicy notes, you can use a kind of spicier bitter. And sugar. Now you're stirring that down until the sugar is dissolved into the whiskey. And then you're diluting that to the kind of perfect taste for you. And then you're pouring that over a large block of ice. So I mean, it's a fairly adult drink, but I mean, one of those ones to be sipped and savoured. Garnish with your little cheeky red maraschino.
Gordon Dundas, whose booze is Mikey Simm handing over?
Well, it's interesting because he's not suggesting you would use Hague Club for this, but I'm guessing it is David Beckham.
Mikey, is that who you're handing it over to? Do you think?
I mean, if we're going grain led, I think so. The ambassador for, I mean, a little bit more famous than any of us.
You are correct. Red, spice, and green whiskey. Well done, Gordon Dundas, Mikey Simm. Okay, we've got two more to go. Whose booze is it anyway? I live in Palm Beach Gardens in Florida. I'm a professional sportswoman. I'd usually have a single, maybe a double, but today my cocktail should be a great pick-me-up as I'm feeling a bit down. It's got to be bold, refreshing, and full-on like me, with maybe a second straw for my sister. Have a thought there. Mikey Simm, what are you going to make for this lovely lady?
Now, You both know the famous cocktail of Tom Collins, correct?
Yes.
Now, if we're thinking whiskey, we're going to go the John Collins.
Ooh, yes.
So you have the perfect balance: sugar, lemon, whiskey, topped up with soda. Quite happily stick a little the cocktail umbrellas on top of there.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and two straws. So yeah, similar in in all the ways in its makeup to the Tom Collins, except for we're using the old amber nectar and lengthen that. Tall, refreshing, 2 straws and a cocktail umbrella.
Gordon Dundas, who is needing refreshed?
That sounds quite a serene drink. I'm guessing, and also her sister's possibly a planet. Serena and Venus?
Yes, you are correct. Thought they might need a little cheering up after going out in the first round of Wimbledon. And finally, on Whose Booze Is It Anyway? Mikey Simm, can you make a cocktail for this professional sports star? I was born 1972. I don't like too many ingredients. Fighting and wrestling for dominance in the glass. Nothing too fast, nothing too furious. Something smooth, something chilled. I like a classic. A classic as dependable and as solid as something dependable.
It's going to be a Manhattan.
Okay.
It's got to be a Manhattan. 3 ingredients. Traditionally bourbon.
Yeah.
Sweet vermouth and bitters. Stirred over ice and into really super cold Nick and Nora glass or coupette. I mean, you don't really get any more classic than a Manhattan. Yeah. I mean, you can drink it anywhere in the world. It'll taste identical, if not similar, all over the world.
I'm not thinking that's one of the earliest cocktails from, the middle of the 19th century. Some Manhattans.
It is. I mean, it is one of the most classics of all time. If you speak to any bartender around the world, they're going to know or should know how to make you a Manhattan.
Okay. Do you know who Gordon, do you know who's Mikey's serving? Are you struggling?
I am a little bit.
Mikey,
the only person I could think it could be is Jason Statham.
Oh, he's hit the bar. It's wrestling.
See, I'm thinking the old People's Elbow, The Rock.
Yes,
Dwayne
Gordon,
the
I said it's
Johnson
classic
Rock.
and dependable and as solid as a rock. You should know that music.
Solid as a Rock by Womack and Womack.
Solid as a Rock, The Rock, and that is yes.
Well done. Yeah, well done. Fabulous.
I mean, that was pretty good teamwork, though.
Yeah, very good, very good. Well done, Mikey.
The whole point of this was, whiskey's summer drink, do it long, make some of those wonderful cocktails. You can rewind us back and hear Mikey put them together.
And aside from all of that, I know Mikey loves a highball too.
Yeah, I mean, I love a highball, and I think there's certainly some summer drams that should be drunk neat as well. I mean, this is the great thing about whiskey, isn't it? I mean, I'm partial to putting a bottle of whiskey in the fridge. I'm not going to lie. It might divide opinion, but
absolutely,
yeah.
Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Drink it how you like it.
Okay,
fantastic.
My final question is:
wisdom from the Simster.
Is there mileage? And hey, barman, whose booze is it anyway? Is there mileage here?
You use and abuse me anything you want.
Right. We will indeed. Thank you, Simm. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mikey. Lovely to see
you. Play that at home, folks. Gordon, you met up with one of our great ambassador friends.
I did. And it's a brand, and he's a fantastic guy, but it's a brand which is I think certainly garnered a little bit of interest over the last couple of years since it took over its new ownership, and they've repackaged it, and I think they're producing some lovely whiskies. So I caught up with Jamie Morrison of Glenturret. Now, Glenturret, for those who may not know, is the oldest licensed distillery.
Yes,
in Scotland.
You're going to get to that.
We are going to get to that. I thought I knew the date, but he enlightened me on that, which I was like, all right, okay. And it's now owned by Lalique, and it also has, well, he's got a lot to talk to us about, not just about the whiskey, but Jamie's a fabulous
really
fabulous
not
ambassador
really
for this industry, and not just for his own brands. And we've been wanting to get him on for a while. So let's hear from Mr. Morrison. Return of the Mac, not that Mr. Morrison. So we're joined by Jamie Morrison of Glenturret. Now, Glenturret Distillery in Perthshire is famous, obviously, because it is technically Scotland's oldest. Is that not right, Jamie?
Absolutely, Gordon. It's in 1763. We're very proud of that.
I thought it was 1776.
1775 adorned our bottles for quite a few years, to be fair.
Oh.
And from what we understand, that came from Alfred Bernard's book in 1887. So when Mr. Fairley started up the distillery again after its sort of lull due to prohibition in the late 50s, effectively, if you were looking for a brand plan and you found a primary source from 1887 saying that arguably Scotland's oldest working distillery, you would take the brand plan and you would run. So that's effectively what happened. It was kept to 1775. Nobody really did a huge amount of research into it at that stage. And we knew there was always more history to uncover. But, you have to think about where we were as a business before, as part of the previous company. And 1775 worked. But when the new owners took hold of the distillery in the sort of late 2018, early 2019, we embarked on a huge research project. So they brought over a Swiss historian and his team, and first of all, they had to learn how to understand Scottish history, which, as you know, is not always easy round about that time. Anything pre-1823 is like putting a jigsaw together in the dark. But we eventually started tracing contract of sale to contract of sale and back to signature, and they uncovered something that's fundamental now to us, and that was a rental document from 1763. So it pertained to the then known Thurett Distillery. So it was sitting on the site where we are, and the lands at that stage were owned by the Barony of Ochtertyre. Principally, it was Sir William Murray of Ochtertyre at that stage. And the rental document says we didn't pay rent in 1763 because we'd been laying waste for several years prior. So not only does it give us concrete evidence that we were in existence in 1763, it kind of alludes to the fact that if you'd lain waste for several years prior, you had to be there in the first place. So that's still part of our history that we're working quite hard on to try and figure out whether we can go back any further. But we felt confident enough with that document that we could say Scotland's oldest working distillery, 1763. So, yes, they've not just found an extra 12 years.
You have? Well, there you go. Yeah, no, absolutely. Oh, that's fantastic. Because I used to work for Bowmore, and I was always like 1775, Bowmore, second oldest, 1779. But actually, as you say, you found another 12 years through legitimate reasons, which is great. Absolutely. So you mentioned the new owners, obviously. For those who maybe don't know, Glenturret was part of Edrington, and some may know 10 odd plus years ago it was known as the Famous Grace Experience. Would that be fair? And then obviously probably less so as Glenturret at that point. But since you guys have taken over, there's been a complete transformation of the brand, and it really has become something, completely different to what it was.
If you look at it historically, it's went through various changes of ownership in its sort of entire history. But the Famous Grouse Experience, it came in 2002 and until the late stage of 2018. So 16 years we were known as the spiritual home of Famous Grouse. And I think what you say is right. It's fair to say that Glenturret as a single malt perhaps wasn't always the focus for the Famous Grouse Experience. For those who have worked there through that entire time and prior, Glenturret was always the thing that we were most proud of. But it's, commercially it made sense to have the Famous Grouse Experience at Glenturret. It was one of the constituent malts, etc. And you can't lose sight of the history that put you where you are now. So when it came up for sale, it was seen as a really important distillery for somebody to take forward, and with some ambition and some vision, and hopefully some investment, which we've seen a great deal of recently. And it's just a really exciting chapter. Actually, I would probably say it's, in my opinion, one of the most exciting chapters a distillery's ever been through.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And now you see Glenturret, it's got some really dynamic, different packaging. We'll come on to the distillery itself shortly, but it's got much more of a range than it's ever had before. And for those who maybe don't know, if I was to ask you, what is the sort of house style? What is the style that runs through all that range, and what is the range?
In terms of a sort of house character style, when we talk about the character of our new make, we're looking at a citrus note in there, so orange, lemon, to a lesser extent apple sometimes, but that's by the by. And we look for a bit of sweetness, kind of toffee caramel, a little bit of oiliness, not too heavy. It's a very delicate floral spirit, very gentle. So we try and accentuate the characters of that spirit throughout the range by bringing different series of casks together, looking at different ages, different influences. We now also, since 2009, largely we produce peated spirit as well. So we've got almost 2 branches of Glenturret running concurrently. And this is the first time in 2020. It was the first time we'd really made a point of saying, look, this is what we do. The range. We embarked on, some would say probably a bit of a challenge, but a fun challenge nonetheless, that every year our whiskey will change. So the range of bottles are a triple wood, a 10 years old, a 12 years old, a 15, a 25 and a 30. So the namesakes will remain the same, but every year the liquid inside the bottle changes. And a lot of that is to do with stock. We don't have a massive amount of stock available to us, and to allow you to understand, I mean, when you are being sort of a blending distillery, if you like, which is, to be honest, which is what we were. You were filling for a blend, not looking at it through a vision of single malt production. So therefore, we have to look at what do we have available to us, what is it we want to do with that, and how do we create the sort of the best of our endeavours every year, if you like, which is really important, because if we don't have a massive amount of casks available to us in the first place, so we have to make sure whatever we do with them is the best that we possibly can.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, I don't want to sort of blow his trumpet too much, but our whiskey maker that some of you may or may not have heard of before, Mr. Bob Delgarno, he's not a recipe whiskey maker. He goes in and really tries to understand what's going on with casks. I try and keep up with him, and it's incredibly difficult to try and get into his mind and see what he's thinking, because he can look at something and just know that that's going to work well with that. And the skill set and experience that we have in a whiskey maker and the wider team is amazing. So it's interesting that we're able to adapt and be quite nimble with the distillery. I mean, being a small production in the region of sort of 200,000 litres at the moment, we are able to trial different barley varieties. We can play around with different casks. We can try a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And as an independent distillery, you have the freedom to do that. So it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
And you said 200,000 litres at the moment.
Yeah, I wondered if you'd pick that up. So 200,000 litres. We do have ambition to raise that number to about 500,000 litres. And I would caveat that by saying that one thing that we will never ever allow to happen is for quantity to overtake quality, because it just defeats the purpose of what we're trying to achieve. But yeah, we are looking to increase the production. In fact, we're going through part of the sort of step change to that at the moment, in terms of some investment in the production. So we're looking at moving some things around and adding some things in, which will allow us to increase the production slightly. But the thing is, for us, it's all manual, and it always will be, and that's something that we're incredibly proud of. We like to think of it as a very traditional sort of small batch production, and that's a real strong point for us. Something that we're very proud of. We want to keep going into the future. So yeah,
fabulous. And of course, as a visitor attraction now, I mean, I know there's been I've had some friends from Glengoyne have been there for a meeting, and they've been around and gone, wow, this place has changed so much. And obviously now the other thing, there's another aspect, is you are one of those rare things, you have a Michelin star. Can you just sort of tell us a little bit about how that came about, in terms of how do you decide to open a restaurant that's going to, and then get a Michelin star? I mean, we don't even have a coffee shop at Glengoyne, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think when the new owners took sort of control of the distillery, it was always in the vision plan to open a gastronomic experience restaurant. And for us, we were all keen to see how that sort of came to life. Our owners have previous experience and lots of it in purchasing sort of heritage property and turning that into something really quite spectacular. I mean, one of our owners, Mr. Silvio Daines, he bought Chateau Laferry Perigee vineyard a few years ago, and he's turned that into a wonderful experience. And Villa Rennie La Lique, of course, which was his original house, was turned into a boutique hotel, and I believe they've got at least 2 Michelin star there. So it was always in the vision plan. It was a case of, in many ways, taking what was often seen as the forgotten distillery. I mean, it's the oldest distillery, but you never really heard anything about it, as we alluded to earlier. But taking it and giving it a good polish and allowing that to shine on the stage. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people in the industry and out with thought we were a little bit mad, really. We opened the restaurant and planned to open it in the middle of a world pandemic, when lots of things were kind of going pear-shaped, for want of a better phrase. And I don't mean to take anything away from that. I know it's been a really hard time for everybody, but we felt that we were ready to open the restaurant. And we brought in who we felt were the people who were performing at the best of their field. So our head chef, Mark Donald, he was at the Balmoral for a few years prior, headed up there. And previous to that, he's worked in some amazing establishments around the world. And he collated his team and brought them to the distillery. And to be honest, Gordon, we're just incredibly humbled that it's been so successful so quickly. I mean, we opened the restaurant, and in 7 months we were awarded their Michelin star. Oh. And I mean, you know yourself, you've been to the distillery over the years, you've walked up the stairs and you've grabbed some bite to eat. Now you walk upstairs to the restaurant, and there really is a wow factor there. It's so stunning. I mean, everything has been thought of to, the colours, the what's on the walls, what the what the menus look like, and we're really enjoying the journey. And it's created, I mean, not only are we the only distillery in the world that has a Michelin star, it's created almost like an anticipation to come and see what it's like, and to enjoy the sort of fare that we have there. We were very conscious of not allowing the restaurant to stand on its own 2 feet. We didn't want it to be, for example, here's your chicken dish and here's the whiskey that we've paired with that. Or here's the whiskey sauce for your steak. So we wanted to look at the provenance of the area and, for example, some of the ingredients we use as producing the distillery. So one of my favourite things, and I'm ashamed to say this really, but one of my favourite things about the restaurant is we make malted barley sourdough. And nice. It is, I mean, I'm a big lover of bread, so it's, I mean, the creativity that comes out the kitchen, it's a wonderful experience. We've collated. Sorry.
No. I mean, utterly fabulous. And look, I mean, I've not eaten in many Michelin-starred restaurants, and I've not eaten in that one, but I certainly will try and get up there at some point and try and see the quality. I'm sure it's amazing, and I've not been to the distillery for a long time either, but we'll sort that out. Absolutely. But from your perspective, obviously, you've been with the business for how long, have you now?
So I started in March 2015, so 7 and a bit years now.
Crikey. And your title is?
So I'm Global Brand Ambassador,
right? Okay.
For the Glenturret brand. So I began as a tour host, tour guide of the distillery.
Yeah.
Loved it. I still love speaking to people, as you can probably clearly see. But yeah, I love what I do. And you know, we've bumped into each other in random parts of the world, and you're alone traveling, but you're never really alone. You know, we have this community of ambassadors and people who work in the industry that really, I mean, you know, yourself included, a lot of us are really good friends now. So yeah, I love what I do. Wouldn't change it for the world.
No, I have to say, selling whiskey, talking about whiskey, I've done that for a long time. It's a great, it's a great thing to get involved with. It is a community, it is a small industry, really, and we all seem to get along pretty much, which is fabulous. And I think the secret of the success, to be honest. And how about? I know you've been away a bit. Have you got any travels lined up?
So I'm probably looking to go over to Germany later on in the year, Inter Whisky, Netherlands, perhaps for Den Haag if it happens this year. Probably.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed. Probably looking to go to Whiskey Fest in New York. And then personally, I'll be going over to India in September, so heading over there for 3 or 4 weeks. So quite looking forward to that. But yeah, so a little bit of travel.
Fantastic. Well, look, thanks for joining Some Whiskey Unscripted. Great to get a sort of update on Glenturret, and great to see it out there because it's a damn good whiskey, and brilliant to speak to you, my friend.
Yeah, no problem, Gordon. Anytime. Hope to see you soon at the distillery.
Yeah, hopefully. All right, thanks a lot.
No worries.
Oh, that was fascinating as well. I love it. For me, I love all the history, and I'm sure we'll meet up with Jamie somewhere in the UK or Europe. But Gordon, that got me interested about all the dates there when he was chatting about who was the oldest, and he was saying with those researchers from France, they got, I think it said they got Glenturret down to 1762, and of course, this is a new feature, by the way. I'm just teeing it up. Of course, I went onto the internet and started doing the research. So this little part is called Dallas's EIR, the Endless Internet Research, because one click suddenly left about an hour and a half worth of...
You go down a rabbit hole.
Yes. Oh, that's a nice name for it. Down the rabbit hole. Anyway, Glenturret, yeah, 1762. And then you think, what else is quite old there? You mentioned Bowmore. That comes in at 1779.
That is apparently the second oldest distillery in Scotland.
Well, there's the internet research. Glengarry is coming in at 1778, just a year before Bowmore. Although you mentioned 1775 Bowmore, but according to multiple websites, 1779. So you have a wee look there. Oban then comes in at the 1790s. Quite a lot come in at got Oban at 1794. Blair Athol at 1798. Balblair, Highland Park, 1790. So you're clicking all those websites, having a wee look there. And then I was thinking about websites and about age of distilleries. And then, of course, a couple of weeks ago, Tormore was bought.
Ah, that's a bit of news, yeah.
Pernod Ricard sold Tormore
to Elixir Distilleries, which is the Whisky Exchange, which is Sukinda.
So they bought Tormore.
And if you don't know Tormore, just while we're on it, famous for its beautiful manicured bushes and topiary.
Yes.
And I think it's always that if you drive from the south up to Speyside and you drive into Speyside and you drive past Tormore, it's like the opening gates of Speyside. It's like, we've arrived.
That's right. It's beautiful. There was I believe our Robbie Hughes, who works at as the group distillery manager for Ian McLeod's. Robbie Hughes had a job at Tormore.
I think he's had a job at about 30 distilleries.
Yeah, he has. And of course, the reason I brought Tormore into the conversation was because of Glenturret. It was potentially one of the oldest distilleries in Scotland. Tormore, as a little sidebar fact, is the first distillery built in the 20th century. That was 1958. So there, for the students among you, and this is a date that changed history, 58 years, Gordon, in the 20th century, not one distillery built. And I thought, really? Is that the first one? It would make sense.
Really?
Yeah, it would make sense because of prohibition, the amalgamations in the 1920s, World War II, and then the grain rationing, and then slowly but surely the boom of the 60s was just round the corner. But you thought, really? So I had to look, and then this is the endless internet research, Gordon. And then I saw something caught my eye. It was a distillery called Lochside, and it's down from 1957. I thought, what? What's Lochside? Hadn't heard of it. Did my research. Becky Paskin talked about ScottishWhiskey.com that she was part editor of, headed there, and here it is. Lochside Distillery, not built in the 20th century. It was built by none other than Charles Doig in 1899. It was a brewery first, and it closed in 1957, and it was bought by a Joseph Hobbs, who owned Ben Nevis. He spent most of the 1940s working for National Distillers of America in the Scottish arm, Training McIntyre. So they had Glenurry and Glenesk, and he bought Lochside in 1957. And it starts coming, right. And that's why it was on the dates.
Where is Lochside?
Just sitting above Montrose. And interesting, this chap, Joseph Hobbs, installed a coffee still. And then 4 more pot stills were added. And he started trading and selling his whiskey. His son took over and retained ownership until 1973. Then the Spanish distiller Distillerías y Crianzas, DYC.
Ah, yes, which is now part of Beam Suntory.
They bought it. They bought it and started using it in some of their blends. The coffee still was demolished, but as a landmark, it stood above Montrose, and it was a castle, a white tower, built in the style of a German brew house. And as I said, built by none other than the man that built Tamdhu and the man that designed the pagoda chimney, Charles Doig. So that took about 90 minutes of my life, Gordon. Going from the chat you had with Jamie from Glenturret led me via Tormore to Montrose, Lochside, to where we are today. Endless internet research. Boom, boom.
And how exciting that is, because it leads us into another little feature that we've covered, and I know is hugely popular amongst we've had literally one email about it. Is what's your whiskey destination? Now,
yes, you have arrived.
You have arrived. The reason I say that is that one of the places that we went to was up in Montrose, which was our Bicky a couple of episodes ago. So, Gordon, imagine you're in Newcastle upon Tyne. Now, I know you were in Sunderland and Newcastle recently.
I was.
Okay. And you've got your car. You're in your captor.
Okay. Yes.
And you're heading south on the A1M from Newcastle. Okay.
Yep.
Going probably about probably 60, 70, 80 miles on heading down south on the A1M. Just near Sheffield, you're going to turn off on the M18, and you're then going to take the M1 going all the way south past Nottingham. Keep going south. Keep going south. You're going to peel off onto the A42. You're now heading southwest. Okay. That goes on to the M42. You're bypassing around Britain's second biggest city. Then you're going to join the M5, which is the main motorway southwest. You're continuing to head southwest on the M5, and you're going to then head west completely on the M50.
Oh, I thought I knew where you were going, but you've now thrown me. Okay,
so carry on. Heading west on the M50. Okay, you're probably going for about somewhere in the region of 50 odd miles on the 40 miles on the M50, which turns into the A40, and you're now going to head on the A40, which then you're going to peel off the A40 onto the still heading west, onto the A465, and you're going to head along the 465 for about 25 miles, staying on the A465, pretty much all the way through to your destination. Just before the end of your destination, you're going to turn off the A465, heading north on the A4059 for 2 or 3 miles.
which means absolutely nothing to people living out with the United Kingdom. It doesn't mean much to me, because I thought when you hit the M5 south of the second city was your clue. The second city in the United Kingdom is Birmingham, and Birmingham, south of that was the Cotswolds, but then you took a left and you went west, and I think you've moved into the wonderful country that is Wales, and I think I've got no idea roughly where I've gone after the A465, but I think I have arrived at my whiskey destination is Penderyn. Is it? Yes, you're in Wales. They're wonderful. And we must get people on from Penderyn. That's a great distillery. We must have a good chat, I think, at some point.
No, absolutely. Fabulous.
Well, Gordon, you were at a whiskey destination. We can just squeeze this one in. This was a few weeks ago. Could you set up your meeting with Mr. Schaffer in Nuremberg?
Yes. Well, I mean, I wanted to interview this gentleman because I've known him for a long time, and he is probably one of the most avid whiskey fans. Set up his whiskey club many, many years ago, before there were whiskey clubs anywhere in the world. Bernard is a very influential man in the German whiskey industry and also the worldwide whiskey industry. He's a master of the Quaich and just a fabulous person to hear about and listen to him talking about whiskey. He was in our Rosebank video that we did for our 30-year-old first release. But the other thing that I was keen to find out about Bernard is he wears this amazing bit of jewelry on his ear. And anybody who knows Bernard might want to know why he wears it and what it means. And so ultimately our world exclusive as we get to the bottom of what's Bernard's ear jewelry about. So no, look, brilliant gentleman. I was with him in Germany about a month ago. So this is great. So yeah, fabulous to hear him.
So I'm here in Germany at the oldest whiskey club in Germany, the Highland Circle, in Nuremberg, and I'm here with the inimitable Bernard Schaffer. Bernard, how are you?
I'm fine. I had a wonderful tasting of Tamdhu whiskies with a chap called Gordon Dundas. He did it very well.
Good, I'm glad. It was a great tasting, great crowd, and we're sitting here just having the sort of aftermath, and we've had a great evening. Bernard, this is a really special whiskey club, isn't it?
If you say so.
Oh, come on, don't be so modest.
It is a special whiskey club. I mean, we founded that back in 1990, when whiskey was not this expensive and was not so popular as it is nowadays. And it was just a bunch of 15 people had the same interest. Enthusiasts, yes. We met on the first Sunday of November in 1990, and we never changed that. So every month, on the first Sunday, the Whiskey Club is meeting. Doesn't matter where we are, in which condition we are, or whatever, we're meeting on the first Sunday of the month.
And so I know that how many members do you have?
Well, all together, with all the different type of memberships, we are around about 60 nowadays.
Okay, and I know also, interestingly, being from Glasgow, you are paired with Glasgow, is that not correct?
Well, the city of Nuremberg is twin city of Glasgow since, I don't know, 30 or 40 years, something like that. And also our whiskey club has also, due to that twin city-ship between the cities, we have twinned with the Oran Moor Whiskey Club in Glasgow as well.
Which has a few characters we both know in it.
Yes.
One or two.
Yeah, well, maybe, yeah.
One or two. And I know also that about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, you had the whiskey fair here in Nuremberg, which is a massive occasion, isn't it?
Well, the Nuremberg Whiskey Show is relatively new concerned, if you see Germany as a whole. We have, I think it was 10th anniversary now, and it's a quite big show. I mean, we had the least figures due to COVID, well, now after COVID, there were around about 10,000 people. And the maximum was about 16,000, 17,000, so it is by far the largest whiskey show in Germany.
Fabulous.
Yes.
I mean, it's really, really good, and I know it's a big one in the calendar.
The best thing at the whiskey show is, for those people, the whiskey club likes. The whiskey show starts on Friday evening, but for those people the whiskey club likes, and they are here already, on Thursday evening we have an unofficial opening party at the whiskey club, friends meeting, and on Sunday when the show is over we have an unofficial closing party at the whiskey club for the hard ones, you know.
I haven't had quite enough whiskey at this point. Fabulous. Now also, Bert, I know you do a lot of travel. I know you're a I'm honoured to be a keeper of the Quaich. I know you're a master of the Quaich.
Oh, that's
Is that
correct.
correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you were saying you've been a master of the Quaich for how long?
Well, I became a master of the Quaich in 2007.
2007.
I became a keeper in 1996. The good thing was, when I was there, the guest of honor was His Royal Highness Prince Charles.
Oh, wow, right.
And what surprised me, well, he was very funny and witty, but what surprised me most was the security. It was, I could have a Kalashnikov under my kilt. I wasn't searched. I was 10 meters away of this guy. And even my skin do. I mean, I don't have this nowadays, this new plastic shit for traveling. I have a proper knife, you know. I was really puzzled about that. So no, I was very lucky to have him there when I became a keeper. In 2007, I became a master, and yeah, it's nice.
And being one of Germany's sort of foremost spirit experts, I know you love whiskey, but I know you love rum and other spirits as well. And I know it hasn't for the last 2 years taken you around the world, but it does generally take you around the world. A bit of judging and things here and there.
Yep.
What's coming up this year?
Well, I'm lucky. I'm with the Belgium competition. I'm going to Guadeloupe in 6 weeks, which is famous for rum.
Yep.
Rum agricole. The good thing for us, it's technically Europe, so I can pay with the euro. I don't have this customs excise stuff, so it's Europe. And then I'm going to South Africa for a competition there, which is also very nice. It's in the Stellenbosch area. We do all kinds of spirits there. I mean, very funny. They're very big in gin as well. And at this competition in South Africa, which is different to other competitions, those people who bring in the products, they have to give you a sheet with the main botanicals they're putting in, which is unusual. You usually don't have that. And the last time I was there, we had a gin where they stated botanical source from elephant dung.
Sounds tasty.
But it was a proper gin.
Sounds tasty.
Yeah,
Sounds
and
tasty.
I'm going to Scotland in 2 weeks, and I'm hopefully going to Scotland. I'm going to the Keepers Banquet in October. That's my plan as well.
I might see you there.
Good occasion.
And one final thing, you're exceptionally recognisable. I'm gonna.
Well, the belly was expensive.
It's had a lot of investment in it.
Yeah.
Mine too. I'm talking about a particular piece of jewellery that you wear on your ear. Your Instagram.
Well, you can't see that on the podcast, can you?
No, but it's people who will have seen you will know what I'm talking about. Very unique piece of jewellery on your ear, and I know you've worn it for a long time, but I'd just love to know a bit of a Whiskey Unscripted exclusive. I know a lot of people in the industry want to know as well. How did it come about?
Okay, you're talking about the silver ear.
I'm talking about the silver ear.
Silver ear. Some people call me silver ear as well.
Yeah.
It's kind of nickname. Well, when I was a little boy, at the age of 17 and a half, I had 3 funny ideas. The first funny idea was, you know, policemen and firemen and everybody, they have these little stripes on their dresses which reflect the light. Mm-hmm. And I thought it would be very cool to have a dinner jacket out of this fabric. Which was difficult at that time. There was a company called 3M, where they make these post-its and they produced this fabric. And they had an office in Nuremberg, not anymore. So I went to them and said, I'd like to buy this stuff. Do you have that? Yeah, in 1 meter 40. So I would like to have a jacket out of that. Can I buy some? Yeah, you can buy some. It's no problem. It's a roll of 50 meters. It's 7,000 marks. I said, I need 5 meters. No, you have to buy the whole thing. But anyway, I talked them into it. So I got 5 meters of this fabric. I went to a tailor and I said, I'd like to have a dinner jacket out of that. And the guy took the fabric in his hand, and it's quite stiff. And he said, I think we have to treat it like a tent. So, okay, I had a dinner jacket of that. This was the first idea I had. The second idea was, we're coming to the Sylvia. The second idea was, these sunglasses with mirror sunglasses.
Very 80s.
Yeah, well, it was 80s.
Yeah.
It was in the 80s.
I remember chips.
And I thought what would be... At that time I worked in a bar, and what I thought would be really a stunner would be have contact lenses out of this material.
Oh, nice.
I mean, you saw in science fiction films cat's eyes or whatever.
Like a bit Terminator-ish, maybe, with those...
Even more, but...
Yeah.
Okay, I talked to people, and they told me, it's technically possible. You need hard contact lenses, and this silver it's probably poisonous for your eyes, so it's dangerous. And the last point was it would be 10,000 marks. We'll be talking about the 80s. So Okay, no chance. And the third thing was, as I'm a vivid fan of Star Trek as well, I thought a silver ale would be nice. And at that time I had a friend, she was apprentice of goldsmith apprentice. And she said, yeah, I can do that. So we made a mold of my ear. And then she hammered what now is silver. If you see inside, which you cannot see on the podcast, it's hammered. So she really hammered this piece of silver. It's very light, it doesn't weigh anything, and it cost me at that time, the silver price was 70 marks, and I had to kiss her for that. So when I'm wearing this ever since, and it never fitted really properly, and in the beginning I was very shy to wear it. I thought people look strange, and nowadays when I'm leaving my house without it, I have to make a little touch if it's there.
Like when you have
because I don't feel it. Like that. So now I feel uncomfortable without it.
And
it's an advantage and a disadvantage. I mean, I go to a pub somewhere in Glasgow and they say, hey, you still owe me 3 pints? You bought 95 or something like that. Because
people remember.
As I'm wearing this thing so long and I've been traveling the world, I never saw anybody else with a thing like that. So I'm probably the only one. So I always have to pay my bill, you know.
And there you go, an exclusive. I have always wanted to know, so I'm sure lots of other people have.
That's a true story. The other story is that it's a war injury or somebody bit my ear off in sexual intercourse. It's all lied. Oh. It was just a crazy idea.
And it's great, and it is very iconic. So thank you, Bernard, for a wonderful evening. Thank you.
I have to thank you.
We've had a wonderful tour around Nuremberg today. I've learned more about Nuremberg over the last sort of 5 or 6 hours. Wonderful host, wonderful evening. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Pleasure to see you, my friend. Cheers.
Cheers.
Gordon, that was absolutely superb interview there. Really, I was not expecting it to take that twist. The ear twist was quite
absolutely.
This is no. Listen, we're almost out of time here. I've had Malcolm on, Mikey on, and Bernard there. But just a couple of things. Out of that interview. He mentioned Glasgow was twinned with Nuremberg. Again, we've already had the EIR, the Endless Internet Research. I thought there was another city. Do you know you can be polygamous with twinning? I thought when you were twinned, that was you, but no. Glasgow is twinned with also Turin, Italy, signed in 2003. Nuremberg, Germany, 85. There was Rostov-on-Don in Russia, currently suspended. Lahore,
Rostov, I've been there.
Lahore, Pakistan, 2006. Dalian in China. Havana in Cuba. Bethlehem in Palestine. And Marseille in France. Glasgow is twinned with these. So, again, I didn't know that. And I just love, Gordon, it's maybe throwing you in the spot before we go. He did say that jewellery idea was just a funny idea he had when he was younger.
Absolutely.
You must have had a couple of those, Gordon.
Yeah.
I'll go first. My funny idea, I just thought if I could look as close to Don Johnson in the 1980s as possible, life would be so much richer for the socialising that I would conduct in nightclubs.
How did that go for you?
Not well. No, moustache, hair to the shoulders, jackets, pastel coloured, up to the elbows. And I remember going through as a student, my first week as a student, being laughed at a key card machine with students were standing behind me. And I was dressed like Don Johnson. I thought, maybe time to change.
Did you have a blow-up crocodile under your arm?
So these are the funny ideas, Gordon. I don't know if you've had any funny ideas as a young man.
You've put me on the spot. Yes, of course I had many funny ideas, but not many I can share on this platform.
I know, I didn't think of it.
But no, look, great to have done episode 7.
We'll come back to that one.
We're going to take a little bit of a break. Only about a month or so, because you've got holidays. I'm off to Australia with work, so we can't really do one in the next. But we'll come back with. Will it be a new season?
It'll be a new season. I think we'll just maybe start new season. Why not?
Yeah, season 6 it will be. So
that's
going to be in August. But we hope you've enjoyed this season, and we will see you in August.
Yes, great. Gordon, let's raise the glass. Have a happy summer. And whiskey is a summer drink. We've established that, and have a great time down under. And folks, we'll see you in August. We'll do a lot of recordings as well, and we can put them all out August.
Absolutely. And catch up with all the other 57, 58 episodes, 53, episodes we've done.
Yes. Thanks to Malcolm, Mikey, and to Bernard
and
Jamie.
Well done.
Too much. Cheers, Gordon.
Bye.